Sit. No formality. No formality.
Tashidile, Your Holiness. I'm Shopna Mitro. I have done my PhD on Tibetan refugees in India, and then I have done my MPhil also. Now I'm a teacher in college. Actually, I have two questions to you. That first one is that we Indians are doing research on Tibetan refugees in India and in abroad. Refugees and Tibet. So what are the other areas of research about Tibet history we should look after? This is very important. If you give us any kind of suggestion that what are the other areas of research that we can do much work. And the next one is that do you feel that Tibet will get is autonomy? Thank you.
I think you should pay more attention, as I mentioned earlier. Our knowledge, which come from India, so in that respect, I think you should pay more attention. I said, now, that Tibetan culture, heritage, and knowledge, these things, is something now unique on this whole planet. So that cultural heritage really brings Tibetan self-confidence and inner strength. Therefore, in the past, I think, almost 2,000 years, you see, sometimes you see Tibetan, even something like civil war, or sometimes the Chinese invasion. And similarly, some occasion, Tibetan also invaded China, like the Tang dynasty, the capital, Xing'an. I have been there. The most sacred Buddha statue which we kept in Lhasa, which brought by Gongzhou, Chinese princess. So when I visited, you see, that temple in Xing'an, the Tang capital, Tang dynasty capital. So there, the empty sort of seat there. From there, that sacred Buddhist statue brought to Tibet. So like that. So at that time, my point is, the Tibetan sort of army reached that capital. That also, actually, one occasion, 1955, when I was returning from Peking to Lhasa, I spent a few days in Xing'an. But one day, you see, no official program. So we just go to seeing, right? Sightseeing. And then the one Chinese high official, he accompanied with me. Very nice one. While we just, you see, rest on the wall of the city, he told me, one time, Tibetan army reached here. The emperor of Chinese, Tang emperor, you see, have to flee from his own capital. He told, just casually. So like that, some occasion, you see, Tibetan invaded China. And when in some occasion, you see, Chinese invaded Tibet. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the civil war, Tibet, I think 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, unified Tibet, very strong. Then later part of, I think, 19th century, Tibetan, some sort of internal problem, and then disintegrated. And that. So politically, ups and downs, but Tibetan spirit kept. All these difficult period, the Tibetan, the knowledge which come from Nalanda, you see, that really keeps Tibetan spirit. So then last, now, about 70 years, the Chinese communists, you see, they utilize various methods, killing, torture, and brainwash, and also give some money. All sorts of methods they utilize, but fail to reduce Tibetan spirit. So this spirit, like any nation, any community, culture is the key factor to keep. Not necessarily belief, but you see certain sort of knowledge. Therefore, and then some Chinese officials also, now they mention Tibetan Buddhist, so not much danger of violence. Whereas in Uyghur, Xinjiang, Muslim, so a lot of problem, a lot of killing. So the Buddhist tradition, non-violence, we Tibetan, 6 million Tibetan, you see, under most difficult circumstances, we practice non-violence, ahimsa. So now today, more and more Chinese is showing interest about Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which come from Nalanda, the same source. China also the Tangsen. Century Kware, Tangsen? 7th century, or Tangsen, great master. You see, he came Nalanda and he brought Buddhism according to Nalanda tradition to China. So same source. So therefore, now number of Chinese scholars who are showing interest about Buddha Dharma, now some of them, you see, express Tibetan Buddhism is authentic Nalanda tradition. And that tradition, very scientific religion. Some of them express that way. So now, I think India now should pay more attention. So as I mentioned earlier, you see these Tibetan spirit, very strong spirit, very much connected with Buddhist tradition. Okay, like that. So then refugee, as a refugee, there are millions of refugees. But we, firstly, I think our relation, India and Tibet, like relation between Guru and Chela. We are Chela, you are Guru. I usually is telling, we are not only Chela, but quite reliable, trusted Chela. So that I think Tibetan tradition, which come from Nalanda, is really very, very helpful to keep Tibetan spirit. Since 9th century, Tibet divided. Amdo, northeast Tibet, and then come East Tibet, then Yuzhang, the central and western Tibet. But politically, you see, these kind of ups and downs, but entire 6 million Tibetan, you see, same language, same script, same culture, so that unified Tibet. Very important. So while we become refugee, firstly, India is spiritually our home, not new. You see, 59, when we escaped to this country, you see, this is original our spiritual home. And then Pandit Nehru, since 54, I met Pandit Nehru. I know him. My first meeting in Peking, 1954. The Kasa, the Kasa Chusana, the go under the Shi teaching Kasa.
People's Congress. National People's Congress.
Ijiga Kasa.
National People's Congress.
Marmari. The establishment of the People's Republic of China. So Pandit Nehru invited. So I was there. Then Zhou Enlai so offer one big lunch. I also have the because of the high position in the People's Congress Steering Committee, one sort of deputy. So I'm one of them. So I was there. So when at the lunch, Zhou Enlai, you see, because of that brought Pandit Nehru, all the leaders, because of the line. And then Zhou Enlai is introduce these leaders. Then my case, Pandit Nehru, the Zhou Enlai introduced this Dalai Lama. That moment, Pandit Nehru become speechless. Remember that, motionless. I think something like shamatha, meditate, I think. So I felt Pandit Nehru at that very moment felt, I think he must be reflected Sardar Patel's projection. India must protect Tibet, otherwise in future some difficulties may come. Isn't it? I think Pandit Nehru, I think all these things, I think, reflected in his mind. So I think at least half minute. Remember that. I feel very shy. How to deal with it. Then Zhou Enlai, very, very clever. His eyes always look like that. Chairman Mao not like that. Looks more honest. And Liu Shaoqi. Zhou Enlai, very smart. So he immediately introduced next to me, Panchen Lama. No, this is Panchen Lama. Like that. This is the first meeting. Then 56, Buddha Jayanti celebration, I came here. There also, Government of India, I think, really make serious effort. The invitation from Mahabodhi Society and Rajkumar of Sikkim came, and the invitation, give me invitation. Then I asked Chinese officials, they say, oh, this small organization, you should not accept. Then accordingly, I respond that way. They sent message to Delhi. Then the name of Government of India extend invitation. Then I asked Chinese official, now what to do? Now they say, now invitation come from Indian government, so you should accept. Like that. So then, 56 Buddha Jayanti celebration, I came here. Then during that period, several meetings with Pandit Nehru and serious discussion about Tibet. So he finally, at that time, many Tibetan officials, you see, have the view, now better to stay here, not return to Tibet. Because you see, already uprising already started in eastern part of Tibet, 56. Then 57, northeast northeast Tibet, Namdo area. Then 58, 59, in whole Tibet, some uprising like that. So therefore, we asked Pandit Nehru, now we are thinking, now not to return to Tibet, remain in this country. But Pandit Nehru, he personally, you see, one day he carried one copy of 17-point agreement, and then he mentioned on this cross, you should carry struggle within Tibet, not from outside. Then finally, I returned. So Pandit Nehru have some moral responsibility. After 57, beginning of 57, I returned. Then I follow Pandit Nehru's advice, how to tackle, how to carry struggle. But then things become more serious. Then 58, lot of problem. Then finally 59, whole Tibet, a lot of problem. Then 10th March 59. So then things become out of control. Then the last I communicate with the Chinese general in Lhasa. Now he told me at Nobulinga Summer Palace, there are few certain buildings, some are a little bit distance. So the Chinese general, asked me, the place where you live should mark, then we will protect. That means they're going to bombard Nobulinga. So is in that word, not very sure. Either protection or target. Things become very serious, very serious. Then 17th March, we decided escape from Lhasa. So Pandit Nehru. So then, when I reach Mussoorie, Pandit Nehru come, and serious discussions. He have some morally some kazoda responsibility, right? So since then, government of India, I think, took special sort of care Tibetan refugee community. Then Tibetan, firstly, settlement, and then secondly, most important is education. We asked Indian government, we want separate Tibetan school, because also we want to keep learning Tibetan sort of script, Tibetan language like that. So Pandit Nehru fully support. And he set up one sort of committee headed by Union Education Minister, Mr. Mali. So Pandit Nehru really immense help. So as a result, now after nearly 60 years, 60 years, Tibetan community, refugee community, now quite well established and quite successful refugee community. So all this, firstly, I feel Tibetan spirit. Tibetan spirit actually come from Nalanda tradition, like that. Next question.
I'm Sriraj. I'm coming from Manipal in Karnataka. I'm working on the Tibetan issues in Mundugod in Karnataka. My question is that everybody says that the future lies in Asia. And do you see that the teachings of Buddha are going to show the future for this world? If that's the case, as you said, that you are a very trusted chela of your guru, that's India.
Too close. Too close on.
Yeah, your trusted guru, and how do you see the role of your trusted guru, that's India, in future?
Nangshuge.
No.
I always make distinction. Buddhism, as I mentioned earlier, Buddhist culture and Buddhism. Buddhist culture, including these academic subjects, psychology, logic, these things, and like in philosophy, like quantum physics, these things. So we should make distinction, religion and these academic subjects. So religion for Buddhist, but these academic subject is, as I already mentioned, is it for everyone? So I feel, as I mentioned earlier, now time come. I think you should utilize those Tibetan who have 1,000-year-old India's knowledge. So we already have some sort of program. Firstly, with the local government college, we already, and then we have some program, something like teachers training. We already now thinking. The college here, including the principal, they really showing interest. So I'm hoping we need some now sort of systematic sort of program. Firstly, you should start in Himachal here, then Karnataka state. Since all those historical, most important learning monastic institution established in Karnataka state, like northern Karnataka, the two big monastic institutions there, Kanden and Devum, and then Kasajodi, the southern, the Karnataka state, Belagubi, there another sort of great historical, Buddhist learning center there. So now already, which is some local Indian now enter some of these monasteries. So they already carry some study. So we are thinking now one way, some local Indian should give the opportunity, and some may become monk or nun. And then we should arrange some facility, lay people study these ancient Indian knowledge. So we are thinking, now here, at least in Dharamsala, because Sara, the lay people, the opportunity to study here. So, like psychology and logic and certain philosophical views, including quantum physics, these, I think we can easily start class, study, like that. And then next question.
The future role of India. Future role of India in addressing the issues.
Kasa. I feel the Western world, of course I respect all religion, all dharma, wonderful. But in the philosophical field, the Judeo-Christian tradition, just a faith. God, 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 God. Many Indians also say Shiva, 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 Ram, 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 Ram. India's tradition, as I already mentioned, over 3,000 years already developed how to tackle our emotion and psychology. These already developed. So Buddha himself, product of that Indian tradition. I think Buddha created one unique thing is anathema theory. The all Indian tradition, religious tradition, believe Atma. That also quite useful. When I explain the rebirth theory, the concept of Atma is very useful. Beside this body, there is independent soul or self, Atma. So from previous life, at Atma, no beginning, no end. So quite useful. But Buddha, anathema theory. Otherwise, you see, Buddha himself is a product of the Indian tradition. So now, this is some my friend, Christian preacher, right? Priest. Oh. Some of them, you see, told me, according to their own experience, now in Europe, the younger generation, who more scientific-minded people, to them, very difficult to explain about God. And to such people, Buddhist way of approach is very, very acceptable. So, I think all religion, wonderful, as I mentioned earlier, we must respect all these religions, all these traditions, but people who are more thinking, more investigation, the India's tradition. And among the India's tradition, now among the living tradition is the only Nalanda tradition. So therefore, I think India, as I mentioned earlier, one time in, say, I think 40s, 50s, ahimsa really influenced many parts of the world. Non-violent struggle. Now more educated people showing, now for example, the quantum physicist or psychologist, the only sort of source their knowledge further developed only Nalanda tradition, no other tradition. And then also is India's the tradition, what's it, the secular. Seems, I think, the 21st century. I usually telling when I give some teaching in South India to those nearly 10,000 monk students and also a few thousand nuns. See, usually a few occasions I express
There are two processes of following a teaching. One is the way of the people whose minds are not very sharp. They follow out of devotion. Then there is a second way of following, which is the way of the intelligent people who would not follow the teaching just out of faith, but they would follow it through reasoning.
So, between these two, if we follow the first one, just a faith, then I don't know how long remain Buddha Dharma on this planet. If we follow second way, investigation, go that way, at least I think next few centuries, Buddha Dharma will remain. You see, people, everyone, you see, want peace of mind. So you see, I think in India also now, I think drugs problems of drugs. In America and many countries, you see the producer of drugs, they also have some responsibility, but mainly people who use these things. Because of drugs,
Because there is a market to sell the drugs, and therefore there are people who sell them.
So therefore, the peace of mind, I think everybody want. Not through prayer, but through training. And then some scientists say basic human nature is more compassionate. One occasion, one scientific sort of meeting, so one scientist, he showed us one picture. Very young child, 6 months old, language not yet developed. And then to that, the child show one sort of motion picture, some cartoon. In the cartoon, you see two young children helping each other, smiling. When that 6-month-old child seeing that, show joyfulness, like that. Then, next cartoon, two children, you see negative attitude, one another. When dad shows to the child, the 6-month-old child, clearly express unhappiness. So that scientist now concluded basic human nature is more compassionate. Then more important, the constant anger, constant fear, actually eating our immune system. More compassionate mind brings inner strength. That brings peace of mind. It is very good for our health. If we say more compassionate mind is something good because of Buddha say, because of Indian masters say, then many people say, oh, it doesn't matter. But if we explain this on the basis of scientific finding, then people, pay more attention. So like that. Therefore, I feel Buddha Dharma, not as a faith, but certain sort of way of thinking, mainly reason, experiment, and academic subject. If we emphasize on that part, that level, I think Buddha Dharma, particularly the Nalanda tradition, the Pali tradition, the foundation of Buddha Dharma. Buddha is the first Dharma wheel, Dharma teaching, then second Dharma teaching, then third Dharma teaching, 3. The first Dharma teaching at Sarnath, that is recorded in Pali tradition. Tripitaka, Kasa, Tenisum.
3 discourses. Set of discourses.
Sila, Samadhi, Prajna. So that's common, or basis of all Buddhism. Then second Dharma teaching at Nalanda. Then Panchaparamita Sutra. You see, mentioning about Shunyata, Patit Samupad, the Sanskrit word, Patit Samupad. That's a very scientific. When I discuss about this topic, then many scientists, they love the concept of Patit Samupad, interdependency, interconnectedness. Nothing independently exists. So when I discuss with quantum physicists, seems to say that subject very familiar to us, and our knowledge is more advanced than most modern quantum physicists, truly, like that. So therefore, I think Buddha Dharma, more intellectual level comes. I think very Kasoda. I think there's real future. And this is not question of, I never try to propagate Buddhism. I always think how much from Buddhist tradition, how much we can make contribution for better human being, peaceful human being, happier human being, not conversion. While we saw some people, you see, converting, then we have some complaining. No? So then logically, if you yourself, you see, try to conversion, then how can criticize other? So religion is completely individual freedom. Whether I accept religion or not, up to individual. If you accept what kind of sort of religion, up to individual. So India's secular way, I think, wonderful.